Barbara Thompson.
Whereabouts?
This was Harvard.
In New Zealand here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Christchurch, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've been asked to speak about my experiences during the war. And recently somebody said to me, when you learned that we were at war with Germany, what were your feelings? Well, I don't remember any specific feelings except that I took it for granted that myself and my 3 older brothers would be going away, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if at least 2 of us could go away together. My second oldest brother was already an officer in the medical corps, so he was called up straight away. My oldest brother was recently married, and his wife had lost both of her parents, and she had 2 smaller sisters to look after, so it was taken for granted that he perhaps should wait a while. He did eventually go into the army. But the other brother next to me, he and I both decided we wanted to go into the Air Force. So we put our names down. Unfortunately, Colin failed the medical because he was colourblind. So they put him in the artillery, which I would have thought was far more. But that's the way it went. So it took a little while to sort this out. And then I was working in Christchurch, but a friend of mine, Duncan McAlpine, rang me and said, could you give up your job and come and help me? I've got to run spy. My brother Jim is a captain in the territorials and he's already been called up. And I've got my own farm also to run. So I was quite happy to do that. And we were told then, and he had got his name down also to go into the Air Force. So we were told that it would be about 10 months before we would be called up to Levin. And just digressing slightly is that McAlpine family, there were 3 sons and 1 or 2 daughters. The oldest was the Honourable John McAlpine, who was an MP. He had Craigieburn. And then there was Jim, who ran Spy, and Duncan, the younger. Of those, Jim was killed in the army, Duncan was killed in the Air Force, and John's only son was riding his bicycle out of Medbury School and he was bowled over by a car and killed at the age of 10. That was the end of the McAlpine males. My 3 brothers and I all served in the Army and the Air Force, and we all came back virtually unharmed. This was different. What could happen? Then, in due course, we were called up to Levin, and we spent some time there square bashing, that sort of thing, and then posted down to Taieri to learn to fly on Tiger Moths. I got to the stage where my instructor said, we'll do 1 more circuit and bump and then you can go solo. I was taking off and another guy on the same course, Len Hanrahan, he was doing his first solo and for some unknown reason he came in downwind and he crashed straight into us. He tore off our starboard wing and he went straight into the ground and was killed outright. But we spun down onto the top of a very big macacarpa hedge, and I think that's what saved our lives. Len was very, very severely injured, and he was in hospital for a very long time, and I was completely unharmed. But I was called in to the chief flying instructor, a Frenchman called Let, who said, that'll be the end of your flying. I'm sorry you would have lost your nerve. But luckily for me, I had a friend who was also an instructor at Tari, and Harry Wigley. Some of you will know who the Wigleys were, Mount Cook Airline, all that sort of thing. And so he went and pleaded with Let that I be allowed to carry on flying. He would like to take me up and turn me inside out, as he put it. And Let rather reluctantly agreed. However, we went up, and then Harry came back and said he's perfectly all right, he can carry on. Unfortunately, the bit of delay meant that I then didn't leave for Canada to fly Harvards with the guys that I'd gone in to live in, and I'd already made some friends, but that was the way it had to be. Spent a long time, of course, in Canada on Harvards, and they've already talked about them, so nothing very special to say, except that when we arrived in Canada, we were sent to an aerodrome at Medicine Hat. But it wasn't for fighter pilots, it was for bomber pilots, a typical RAF cock-up. So we spent a while there. We had really nothing much to do except occasionally act as pallbearer for some guy who crashed on there. And then in due course we were sent to the correct aerodrome at Moose Jaw. And there we did our full training. Just one quick comment there. The hospitality of the Canadians was absolutely amazing. There was a guy, he was just a manager of one floor of a big store, and he and his wife, between them, had over 400 Australian and New Zealand guys staying with them, fed them, and introducing them to their two lovely daughters. Then, with the training finished, we set off from Halifax in a convoy on the HMS Christchurch, a big convoy which had 3 destroyers with it. About 2 days out from Halifax, we were attacked by U-boats, and I can still see those merchant vessels going up in flames and sinking and so on, and probably a very big loss of life. But we were taken by a destroyer because we were all fully trained pilots, so of some importance, and taken up to Iceland and dumped there, where we spent several weeks. Very primitive conditions. We were in a partially built hospital. We had no beds, not even the spot for the floor. We just slept on the floor itself. We hadn't very much to eat, but we became very adept at catching sheep. There were some hot springs in Iceland, rather like up at Hanmer, that sort of thing. And there was quite a big lake very near to us. And we used to go down there and bathe in that stark naked and shave and so on. We noticed that on the bank there was a building, and occasionally we saw what looked like a female face looking out. Then we learned that there was going to be a dance in a hall somewhere in the area. So we went along that evening, fully dressed of course. We went in the front door and there were a lot of young ladies sitting around. They got up and went out the back door immediately. I don't know why. Anyway, in due course we were picked up by a disgusting Belgian liner, the Leopoldville, and taken to Britain. And then up to Scotland to OTU to fly Spitfires. That was more or less uneventful. Unfortunately, we had a lot of Polish pilots, and I don't blame them, but I mean they were dead keen, but they were also a bit sort of foolhardy, and we lost no less than 3 of those Polish pilots killed themselves by crashing, flying in Scotland. And then I flew in a Miles Master once or twice, and then was shown the cockpit of the Spitfire, and I said, off you go. And we spent a reasonable time there, and then I was posted to 91 squadrons at Hawkinge in Kent. But I wasn't with them for very long before I was posted again to 129 Mysore Squadron at Tangmere. They had lost a lot of pilots, and so some pilots from other squadrons had to be taken to fill gaps and so on. 129 was a wonderful squadron. I was on it for a very long time. And whilst I was on it, I was commissioned. Up until then, I'd been a sergeant pilot. And I had been there about 2.5 months, I think. And we were on a flight over France. And we got involved in a hectic dogfight. And we were also being bombarded by flak, the anti-aircraft fire coming up. Anyway, I realized that my aircraft had been hit, the engine packed up altogether, in fact. I was at a fair height, and I thought, well, I can see Britain clearly enough, and I think I can glide over and land somewhere in the field there. But then the plane started to burn, and it got pretty hot, and I decided I couldn't possibly make Britain. So by that time I was fairly low, not over 1,000 feet. Rather late to leave it to be sure that my parachute would open and stop my fall. However, all went well. I got out. The danger always was that you might get entangled. Your parachute might get entangled with a tailplane or something like that, but it didn't. And I came down perfectly well, but I wasn't attached to the parachute for very long at all before I was in the water. I got my dinghy inflated, and you had a flagged wave and a whistle to blow. The sea was very rough, and it was dusk, just beginning to be dark. And they had the air sea rescue patrols launches going along. They came out from Dover, and they patrolled looking for people like us who'd come down and drink. And they had taken with them the Dover harbour master just for a trip. This was their last run before dark. And he saw my parachute, but they said, no, it will be just a white horse. But he was insistent, so finally, to humour him, they came out, and sure enough, they picked me up and took me back, and they filled me up with rum, and from that day I've never been able to touch the stuff. Anyway, that was all okay, and I started flying again. The losses were such that suddenly I occasionally found myself leading a flight, and even on 1 or 2 occasions a squadron, still as a pilot officer. I'm reading myself slightly, so I have to glance down here. We then got instructions to go up to the Orkney Islands, north of Scotland. And it so happened that the signal came through, and at that stage I was the senior pilot on the squadron. The squadron commander was on leave, I think, and so on and so on. And the signal came instructing me to prepare to move the squadron to the Orkney Islands, which meant about 43 people. And I had to have everything organised by 4 o'clock the following afternoon. Then we had to we took our aircraft, of course, but we also took some extra aircraft. We got in other pilots, I was going to help out. And then the ground crew all went by train. They had virtually all day in London before they moved on up north. And when we got there, I asked some of my ground crew next day, what did you do in London? They said, oh, we went to see Gone with the Wind, which the film was ran for 4 hours roughly. I said, what did you do with the rest of the time? They said, oh, we saw Gone with the Wind again. Anyway, we got up to the Orkney Islands, and a horrible place. Bleak, virtually no trees, terribly windy. Our enlistment hut accommodation was buried half underground to prevent from being blown away. And when we took off from the Spitfire, we had to have a guy on each wingtip and 2 on the tail until we taxied out to take off. Soon after we got there, a group of Lysounders came and parked overnight. They were well and truly tied down, but next morning none of them were serviceable to bits. The other thing that I disliked very much was the very, very brown water. You put your hand in the bath and it looked as if you had a wonderful suntan. And so I had a sample sent down to be tested, and the result came back that it was heavily contaminated with animal or human excreta. So from that time I drank my whiskey neat. Then a signal came to take half of the squadron up to the Shetland Islands. That was a different cup of tea altogether. Treeless, but charming, and the people there were nice. What surprised me was, I thought, well, we went around little troughs getting eggs to supplement our rations. I think everywhere we went, they knew about New Zealand, because so-and-so had been in the Merchant Navy and so on. I was very surprised at that. And I always was on RAF squadrons, never on 485 or 486, the New Zealand squadrons. And I liked that because we had a real mixture from all over the world, all over Europe anyway. We had Belgians, Dutch, Danes, Norwegians, an Austrian, Canadians, New Zealanders, of course, and Australians, and even 1 or 2 Poms. That was interesting because of the people you met. We had one great character, signal came posting Flight Lieutenant Count Franz Colorado Mansfield DFC. And I thought, Christ, what this is like? And I went to meet him off a train, and this tall guy got out and saluted and clicked his heels in typical Prussian fashion. I thought, this is going to get on well with the boys, but he was the most charming fellow. We became very good friends, actually. And he said after the war he must come and stay on my estate in Austria, which Goering had taken over as a shooting lodge. Whilst we were up in the Shetland Islands, we went to Scarborough to there were a lot of Wrens, some company, and they used to supply us. We always seemed to have whiskey, and on one occasion they gave us a case of whiskey, and we were heading back to the aerodrome, and we got completely lost. There was fog, and you didn't have any proper headlights, so you just had little slits past the headlights, so, and of course no signposts, because the Germans would have seen where they were if they'd come down. And eventually Collie said, just stop here and I will go and ask somebody, I'll find somebody. Well, he didn't come back, and I had a couple more whiskies, and then I thought, well, I better go and see if I can find him. And I heard something, and there he was in a ditch with his arm round a Shetland pony foal, saying, "You dear little thing." He was a lovely guy, very nice American, and they had a son, and then sadly Collie was killed, and she had another son after he died, so I never got lost yet. We were then posted back south again into Sussex, and not long afterwards I think I've already mentioned I received my commission then, and I was posted to take command of B Flight in 616 South Yorkshire Squadron. And I flew with them for quite a long time. By that time I'd done 2 years, and I began to feel that I was perhaps a danger to my pilots, because I found that I wasn't sleeping well, various indications that I really needed a break from operations. So that was agreed, and I was sent on a sort of rest from operations to instruct guys going on to Spitfires. It wasn't exactly a rest. Anyway, I'd been there not very long, and I had a 48-hour pass, and I thought, well, I'll fly down and visit my friends in 616. And that evening we went out on looking for a pub that had some whiskey, because we had no whiskey in the officers' mess. And we found a pub, but they'd run out of whiskey, and we decided we will go back to the mess. We were in a small convoy led by a pilot driving a sports car with his wife next to him, and in the back seat a young guy and his girlfriend, and sitting on the hood, which was down, an Irish pilot who'd received the DFM only a couple of days before. There was a very bright moon, and we were driving along, and there were 2 very big trees with the moon shining through, which made it appear that the road went straight on, but it didn't. It went sharp left, and the sports car crashed into a bank. The young Irish pilot was thrown forward and hit his head on a tree and was killed. And both the women and Carl were very, very badly injured. One I know was in hospital for over 18 months. The next was a car which crashed into the one in front, and everybody in that was injured. And I was in a Jeep driven by Americans. Again, everybody in that was injured except myself. And I had noticed in the moonlight not long before that there was a farmhouse. And so once I'd had a look round and so on, I walked back to use the telephone and call for an ambulance and assistance, which I did. And then I started back again, but then suddenly collapsed into a ditch. It turned out I had a fractured femur. And so that meant that I then spent 5.5 months in hospital and recuperating, rehabilitating and so on. This all meant that I lost rank. I was by that time an acting squadron leader and I lost rank. Anyway, in due course, I was posted to Red Hill to fly Mustangs and then take over a Mustang squadron. And I didn't like the Mustangs at all. I loved the Spits, and everything you've ever heard about them was true. They were like, as somebody put it, a sort of second skin, and they were just marvellous aircraft to fly. So luckily I had a friend who had been my CO in 129 Squadron. He had come off flying and he was at Air Ministry. And I got on the phone to him and asked if he could possibly arrange for me to get back onto a Spitfire Squadron. And the result was I was posted to take command of B Flight in number 1 Squadron, which was down in Cornwall, that days at Verdanic. This was 4 days before D-Day, and I really had hardly had a chance to get to know my pilots. But anyway, as you probably know, D-Day was delayed for 1 day. The weather was totally unsuitable for the invasion. The fleet, of course, was all up together and ready to go. And then Eisenhower had the awful job of deciding whether or not it should take place the next day or be cancelled. And he made the decision to go ahead. Unfortunately, the cloud base was very low, so that limited our flying. And what we had to do really was to attack locomotives and anything that moved on the roads, because there was no petrol for the French, of course, so you could be perfectly certain that a lorry or anything of that nature was travelling along the road, that they were Germans. We managed to destroy several locomotives and we shot up quite a lot of stuff, but that was our role. But the wonderful thing about this was that our officers' mess was a hotel high up, right on the coast. And for all of that day after the postponement, we had a wonderful view of this incredible fleet of hundreds of ships of all sizes. It was just amazing. You never ever see anything like it again, of course. Not long afterwards, I did something which was rather naughty. I landed with my number 2 on an airstrip that had been laid down, Somerville tracking by the American. And I did that deliberately to become the first RAF pilot to land in France since 4 years and 32 days before, when the last of the fighter aircraft evacuated from France. We didn't stay there long because there were snipers in the trees and it was all pretty dangerous.